हाँ सर शुरू शुरू
So now we will discuss the glomerular diseases that will lead to nephrotic syndrome. Nephrotic syndrome, primary glomerular diseases are minimal change disease, membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis, membranous glomerulopathy (MGP), and focal sclerosing glomerulosclerosis. So focal sclerosing glomerulosclerosis. So these are the important conditions that will give rise to nephrotic syndrome. But nephrotic syndrome usually occurs with a lot of secondary disorders, of which SLE, diabetes, and amyloidosis are most important disorders. Okay. So now we will discuss only these diseases, only the primary diseases which will lead to this type of changes. Okay. So this is known as minimal change disease. Now this minimal change disease is also one of the common disorders when there will be no significant abnormality in light microscopy in the glomerular architecture, but still there will be development of significant nephrotic syndrome. And what is the definition of nephrotic syndrome? We already know. There will be massive proteinuria. So the proteinuria will be more than 3.5 gram in 24 hours. As a result of this proteinuria, there will be hypoalbuminemia. So whenever there will be so much loss of protein, there will be hypoalbuminemia. And as a result of this hypoalbuminemia, there will be edema. And edema also occur because there will be kidney involvement, so sodium and water retention. So both these conditions will give rise to ultimately a generalized edema. So the third component is generalized edema. And the fourth component is there will be some metabolic abnormality which will give rise to hyperlipidemia. So the blood level of LDL and VLDL and cholesterol and triglyceride will be very high. The high density lipoproteins may not be increased, but these will be very much increased. And whenever there will be hyperlipidemia, what it will do? There will be hyperlipidemia along with less lipoprotein synthesis. So the combination is lipidemia. So lipid will come out to the glomerular basement membrane and they will be taken by the tubular epithelial cells. And then when the tubular epithelial cells will be saved, then those lipid droplets will be coming out into the urine. So producing lipidemia. So these are the typical components, nephrotic syndrome. You remember one by one. So massive proteinuria, that will give rise to hypoalbuminemia. And hypoalbuminemia will give rise to anasarca along with renal failure because there will be sodium and water retention. Both will give rise to anasarca. There will be some metabolic abnormality that will give rise to hypertriglyceridemia, hypercholesterolemia, that means hypercholesterolemia. And so there will be lipidemia. Okay, so these are the combinations. Now there is one term. This massive proteinuria can be two types. It can be either selective or non-selective. So either it is a selective proteinuria or it is a non-selective proteinuria. By the word selective proteinuria means it is usually the smaller molecular weight proteins will be excreted. That means albumin will be excreted, but there will be no globulin excretion. When we see that minimal change disease will usually produce this type of selective proteinuria, where there will be specific albumin loss, but there will be no globulin loss. And whereas non-selective proteinuria, which usually occurs other forms of primary glomerular disease leading to nephrotic syndrome, like MGN, like this MPGN, means membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis, or MGN, membranous glomerulonephritis, or membranous glomerulopathy. In those cases, there will be non-selective protein. That means both albumin as well as globulin will be excreted. So the larger molecules of protein also will be excreted through the kidney. So this is the two terms, selective proteinuria and non-selective proteinuria. Now with this background, we now coming into the discussion of minimal change disease. Etiopathogenesis. The etiopathogenesis is not clearly known. It is presumed to be a immune-mediated reaction. There will be some immune-mediated reaction that will cause damage to the podocytes of the visceral epithelial cells. We know the food processes, the structure. Those food processes will be damaged as a result of some antigen antibody mediated reaction, but we do not know what is the actual origin of that immune reaction. But that it is an immune mediated reaction, the evidences are like this. It will be rapid steroid therapy. With steroid therapy there will be massive. So the patient will present with proteinuria, there will be generalized swelling of the body. You give steroid and the patient will become lean and thin. There will be no proteinuria. So the proteinuria will be dissolved like a magic. So that means whenever it responds to steroid therapy, it indicates that there must be some immune mediated disorders. Number two, a lot of disorders occurs with Hodgkin's disease, and in Hodgkin's disease we know that there is some abnormality in the T cell function, and so the T cell cellular immune function is responsible for this type of changes. And as there will be some other autoimmune disorders like autoimmune thyroiditis. They can be also accompanied with these disorders. So whenever these disorders are present, so that means that there is some autoimmune reaction that will give rise to that of the thyroiditis along with the kidney changes. And there can be the affected persons, usually the children, they usually suffer from atopy, allergy. So this atopy, they are mainly prone to atopy or allergy. And so there is, these also give an indirect clue that the patients are the main thing occurring as a result of immune mediated reaction. So in etiopathogenesis we can see that it occurs usually primary. It can be associated with different lymphoproliferative disorders. It can be associated with atopy. It can be associated with other autoimmune disorders. And as a result of this, there will be formation of some immune mediated reaction against the visceral podocytes. So the visceral epithelial cells, their food processes will be affected and there will be destruction and abnormal organization of those food processes. But it is completely reversible, this change. Whenever there will be immunosuppression, then they will come back into their normal cell. So this is the pathogenesis. Now the pathological changes. So grossly the kidney may be slightly enlarged in size, but there is no other abnormal. Kidney may be absolutely normal. Microscopically, again normal, no change. If you see the glomeruli are completely normal. The only change that can occur is the tubular epithelial cells, which are present side by side. So this is the glomeruli. So the lipid will be coming out from the glomeruli into the urinary space, and then they will come down, and that lipid will be absorbed by those cells, proximal tubular cells. So they will show lipid-laden vacuoles. So the only light microscopic change is there will be lipid-laden proximal tubular cells, and for that reason they are called lipoid nephrosis. So lipoid nephrosis, the term occurred as a result of presence of lipid-laden proximal tubular epithelial cells. But the glomeruli absolutely normal, no glomerular basement membrane thickening, no increase in the cellularity, no inflammatory cell infiltration. And then you do also electron microscopy, no abnormality, no deposition of immunoglobulin, no deposition of complement, nothing is there. The only change you get in electron microscopy. In electron microscopy you see that the visceral epithelial cells do not have the podocytes, uniform or diffuse loss of podocytes. Normally it should be like this. Sorry. Normally it should be like this. But now actually what you see, there will be diffuse loss of podocytes. No food processes. So as a result of these food processes, the filtration slit is now wide. So much of protein is coming out. So that is the pathology. So the main pathology is that there will be uniform loss of food processes. But again I am telling, this is completely reversible. You give steroid, again there will be regeneration of the food processes and the normal function of kidney will come. So the kidney change of minimal glomerular disease is that there will be light microscopic, there will be lipoid changes, electron microscopy, no change, immunofluorescence microscopy, no change, and electron microscopy will show there will be diffuse loss of podocyte. And then what will be the clinical feature? Clinical feature, it usually occurs in children, commonly below the age of 10 years, and they usually will present with anasarca and massive proteinuria. And it again come to you as a long question. 6-year-old boy coming with anasarca along with heavy proteinuria. So your diagnosis in that case will be nephrotic syndrome, and the age, according to the age, the commonest cause is minimal change disease. So nephrotic syndrome in children commonly occurs as a result of minimal change diseases. So more than 90% of them, more than 65% of the cases are due to minimal changes. Whereas nephrotic syndrome in adults commonly occurs as a result of FSGS. not sclerosis, focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. I forgot to tell you sclerosis. So focal segmental glomerulosclerosis is the commonest cause, giving rise to nephrotic syndrome in case of adults. And there can be also NPGN and there can be also IgA nephropathy. So these are the adult causes. But in children, whenever you are telling this thing, then you can write that it is probably occurring as a result of minimum change disorder. And the question then should be, what laboratory investigations you will do? The laboratory investigations in blood, there may not be any change. In other organs, there cannot be much more change. But in urine examinations, you will get heavy proteinuria. Cellularity may not be there. And as there will be heavy proteinuria, there can be presence of hyaline cast or protein cast. That means so that the hyaline cast will be there. And if you examine if you do the kidney biopsy, then in light microscopy you will see only lipoid changes. In immunofluorescence you will see no changes, but in electron microscopy you will see that there will be presence of uniform loss of food process. And what will be the prognosis? Excellent prognosis with steroid therapy, particularly in case of children. In case of children, almost 100% will recover, and rest 5 to 10% can go into chronicity, but they will again recover when they reach the adolescence. But minimal change disease occurring in case of adults do not have so much good prognosis, and 50% of it can go into chronicity, and there can be also recurrent matter. So minimal change glomerulonephritis in children, it has got good prognosis, but not in others. Okay. So now only the last part of today's discussion is membranous glomerulopathy. Sometimes it is called membranous glomerulonephritis. Sometimes it is called membranous glomerulopathy, because there will be not so much inflammatory cell infiltration. As there is not much inflammatory cell infiltration, so it is sometimes called glomerulopathy. So now let us see. So it is one of the important cause of nephrotic syndrome in case of adults, but in children it is occurring in only less than 10% of the cases. Etiopathogenetically, see that 75% of the membranous glomerulopathy occurs due to secondary causes. There can be cancer, there can be infections, there can be autoimmune disorders, and also SLE. SLE has got special privilege because it is responsible for almost 50% of the secondary causes. So SLE, other also this other autoimmune disorders, and then there will be also the different viral and bacterial infections, different drugs, all these can give rise to membranous glomerulopathy, and only 25% are primary. So what is the basic disease? The basic disease is that it is like an autoimmune disorder. There will be development of some antibody against specific and glomerular antigen, and that specific glomerular antigen is now thought to be PLA2R or phospholipase A2 receptor. This phospholipase A2 receptor is present over the glomerular basement membrane, and over which there will be development of antibody. And those autoantibodies then will reach there and will produce a local immune complex formation. And in that case, the important is that there will be not much complement activation. So usually, then how the injury will occur? The injury is, sorry, I'm not much complement activation is not there. So there will be immunoglobulin classes of which IgG4 deposition will be there. This IgG4, in that case, there will be complement activation, but the cellular infiltration will be this. So there will be not much cell infiltration. In all glomerulonephritis, what we are telling, there will be antigen-antibody reaction, complement activation, followed by cellular infiltration. So there will be mesangiocapillary proliferation as well as inflammatory cells that will cause injury. But here, the injury is mainly formed by the membrane attack complex of the complement. So C5b9b complex. So that is responsible for the injury. So membranous glomerulonephritis, 25% cases are primary and 75% cases are secondary. It is occurring predominantly as a development of autoantibody against some component of the glomerular antigen, and that antigen will be usually presumed to be phospholipase A2 receptor, and so the antigen-antibody reaction there will be not much cellular infiltration, but the membrane attack complex will be formed and that will cause injury. And so what you will see under microscope, in immunofluorescent microscope in this case, there will be antibody formation, but these antibody will not be present at these antigens. Antibodies are formed against antigen, but these antigens are not diffusely present or uniformly present over the glomerular basement membrane. So the distribution will be patchy. So there will be granular deposit of immunoglobulin. So granular immunoglobulin deposit will be seen over the basement membrane. Okay. And there will be this type of abdomen. Now what are the morphological changes? So morphology and pathology are same, we know this thing. Yes. So pathological changes means morphological changes, though the subject is pathology. So in morphological changes, there are either gross changes or microscopic changes. In gross changes, the kidney will be increased in size, but there may not be so much abnormality. So kidney will be enlarged in size and slightly pale in color. No other abnormality. And if you examine under microscope, then what you will see? We see in light microscope there will be thickening of the glomerular basement, nothing else. There will be thickening of the glomerular basement membrane. And there will be mild increase in the cellularity of the glomerulus, and that is typically occurring as a result of mesangiocapillary proliferation, not due to inflammatory cell infiltration. Inflammatory cell infiltration will be limited, and if you do a pus stain or if you do a silver stain, then you can see this type of abnormality, and also you can see some spikes. these spikes are in the subepithelial site. Remember, subepithelial also in a PSG. Here also it is subepithelial region. So subepithelial spikes are seen. Why? Then you do an electron microscopy. Electron microscopically you will see there will be deposit of the immunoglobulin in the subepithelial site. So what it will look like? Initially, there will be interrupted deposition, and in between those deposition, the glomerular basement membrane will proliferate. So, what the picture will come? So, you got this? So, it will become spikes. So, electron microscopically it will show there will be subepithelial spikes. The spikes are nothing but increase in the deposition. So, in between the deposit, there will be increase in the glomerular basement membrane. Okay? There is deposition of the glomerular basement membrane material and there will be formation of spikes. And now, there is a spike, there is a spike. In between these two spikes is present the deposit. Now there will be joining of the spikes. And what you get? You get a dome. So there will be formation of domes and spikes. So you get first deposit, but you can but there will be spikes in between the deposits, and those spikes will join to form domes. So electron microscopically, there will be subepithelial deposits, subepithelial spikes, and subepithelial domes. And if you do also a light microscopy, a silver stain or a pus stain, you can demonstrate that there will be glomerular basement membrane thickening as well as there will be spikes. And gradually, on long-term cases, there will be hyalinosis and there will be sclerosis. Clinical features, it usually occurs in older age group, usually are insidious onset, and the patient gradually develop the features of azotemia, and there can be also as well as there will be features of nephrotic syndrome. In case of and in this case also, if you also see electron microscopically, there will be loss of food processes. As a result of these domes, the food processes will be damaged. But in addition to food process abnormality, there will be this type of changes. And also chemical condition, there will be nephrotic syndrome, but there will be also gradual fall of kidney function. So azotemia features will be also there. And their prognosis, the more than 50% of the cases can be cured with effective treatment, but usually it runs a chronic course, and a lot of which will ultimately go into a phase of chronic renal failure. And if you can be able to treat the primary cause, like drugs, like specific infection, in that case the disease can be, there is a chance that the kidney pathology can be cured. But if it cannot be, then in that case the kidney pathology cannot be cured. Thank you very much.